Here we are
Mississippi
this
to
morning.
Mississippi. That was the
All right.
pass rush, right? One
Yeah.
Mississippi, two Mississippi, three Mississippi, four Mississippi, just blitz.
That's what it was. But of course, in the case of Auburn versus Alabama, only blitz, only rush two and play patty cake. I still have PTSD about that one. Hey, Rob
Doug
Brown
Dean's
with
in the
you.
gray room.
It was painful. Here on a Wednesday morning, March 20th, 2024. My
Yes.
dad, Grand Bob, got that date right? Shoney, everybody. Maury,
The news and weather of today.
news and weather here from Marion County, Florida. There was more horses than ever. Yeah, the old days of the deal. Look, we got a bunch to cover today. Had the play-in games last night. Wagner, 71. Howard, 68. Colorado State, 67. University of Virginia, 42.
Go
Virginia
Rams.
had 14 points at the half. They have no business being in the NCAA tournament. That's a joke. That's this further evidence this committee is senile. We got enough what we're going to get into. Doug Dean in Birmingham steps up to the plate first. Batter up. Followed by Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net. Check in with the Razorbacks. What's going on out west? We'll also hear from Vince Ferrara from Knoxville, the sports animal. Yeah, look, Brendan, there's a lot to talk about. And my friend, the Sidelines barrister in residence, Jack Turner, down with his son in Gainesville. They visited Gainesville yesterday. He sent me pictures in front of Century Tower on the Florida campus. Also, they went to the swamp. They got to get inside of there. And they went and got their picture taken in front of the Bull Gator, the memorial to the 2006 national champion Florida Gators. Oh, my! Doring has a touchdown! Doring has a touchdown! Brendan has
touchdown, Doring!
Doring has a touchdown. All right, lot to cover today. Get pen and paper handy. Take notes and smash the subscribe button to YouTube in the bottom right-hand corner and on your iPhone or Android.
Let's go.
Allow notifications. That way, every time we do a show, you'll get notification.
And if you're watching on Facebook, you can hit the like button and you will get notifications from Facebook. It is like magic.
It really is. And I watch a lot of it and catch all these shows on the SEC Sidelines Sports Network and SECU. Hey, here we come. Hey. We're ready.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown here with Doug Dean. And I know one thing that, Doug, you remember the great Saturday Night Live episode when Peter Sarsgaard was on there and they did the pirate convention and they had them all in there at the press conference, and he was taking questions, and he said, well, I got a question for you there, Captain. He goes, well, go ahead there, mateys. He goes, well, if a fellow wanted him a good roast beef sandwich, where might he go? Well, Arby's. Well, and if he was one to go kill some ducks and where the Razorbacks are, where would that be? Arkansas. And if we wanted to find some people that are living brain donors, where would we look? Are the NCAA tournament committee mateys. Doug,
Amen.
Some of the best.
Amen to that. And to quote the great George Carlin, late George Carlin.
Yep.
Since y'all did a weather forecast, it got down under freezing last night.
It was cold.
I hope it didn't get my plants.
It was cold last night.
I hope it didn't get my plants. I just spent a fortune putting in Saturday. But so the forecast will be continued dark tonight and dark tomorrow, especially if you are St. John's or Seton Hall or Providence, who the committee they screwed them. Now, if you want to play this annoying game of saying, well, you were on the bubble, you've got nothing to compete. You should have been better than 34 teams. But here's what happened, and some of it's nobody's fault. Some of it is arguably the governance of the NCAA. If they're going to not even watch, do you hear me, Sankey and the committee? If you're not even going to watch the tournament games, and there was no evidence of that Sunday after Auburn ran roughshod through that. By the way, Brendan, prayers for Micah Handlot, and that was just a very unfortunate injury. And I really appreciated Bruce Pearl and some of the players.
Wasn't that classy?
Sending a tweet wishing the kid well.
Classy.
I understand that Vanderbilt did Vanderbilt things at their medical center. Tremendous, great surgery to the point the kid is making the drive with his parents from Nashville to Indianapolis to be with his team. Good for him. But here's what happened. Can we say bid stealers, Rob and Brendan?
Yes.
Here's what happened. NC State stole Pitt's bid. UAB, props to Andy Kennedy. I don't look forward to playing UAB, and I think that's who Auburn's going to get. UAB stole Oklahoma's bid. Duquesne probably stole Seton Hall's bid. Oregon stole Indiana State's bid. So that's going to happen. But you know what should not happen? And forget me whining about Auburn. Let's flip that around. There is the gross injustice, Rob Brown, is UConn not likely even getting past the Sweet 16 after all their great work this season. Why do I say that? Because UConn is going to run headlong into this freight train steered by Bruce Pearl when they get to Boston, Bruce's hometown. It'll be a home game for UConn, but I'm telling you that now Auburn needs to take care of Yale and whoever they play next, which I think is UAB. But it was a screw job of UConn to me more than anything else.
I think you're right. In UConn 31-3 this year, you pointed out in your work some of the best you've ever done. I read every word of it last night a couple of times. And these national champions, the ones that have defended since UCLA's streak, and you pointed this out, give credit to Doug B. Dean. In 1974, they'd won 7 straight. Since then, the only repeats have been Duke 91-92 and Florida 06-07. Duke had 4 starters returning. Florida had all 5 returning. UConn only has 3, and they were picked preseason to finish 3rd in the Big East. So you're right on about this.
Well, and listen, let me hasten to say, boy, UConn is scary good, and they're what I call. I mean, they've definitely got athletes. But I was talking to our man Dave, who's on the show regularly. He's a smart guy, very fair and smart guy. And he kind of knocked me back in my chair in saying, which is not shocking for most SEC teams, where our recruiting based down here. He said Auburn has better pure athletes than UConn to his eyes. UConn is a better team, a well-oiled, extremely well-coached team that can expose you even if you are real athletic. I'm not saying UConn's a bunch of slow guys that aren't tall. They're very athletic and quick. They can really rain threes down. But as we get more into UConn, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but we're not playing. Are you playing, Rob? I'm not playing.
I'm not. And I just checked Brendan. Even though Brendan's 6'4", he's not playing.
I'm an alternate.
I love
but
Jimmy.
I've been drinking, so therefore there's a rule.
Jimmy Dykes Buzz Williams cracked me up in his interview with Jimmy Dykes. He was mad about fouls, and he said, "Do you have any eligibility left to?" It wasn't Jimmy. It wasn't Jimmy Dykes. Who was it? Marty Smith interviewing Buzz. Do you have any eligibility left? Because we don't have any players yet. Put me in, coach. But the point being, we can look ahead. Man, listen, Yale can cause Auburn problems, no doubt about it. They've got a big guy, and they've got maybe the best 3-point shooter in the country. Yeah. But you figure that chalk will rule the day in that one. Yeah. Every year, some round one shockers happen. That wouldn't be crazy. It wouldn't be shocking for UAB or San Diego State to take down Auburn round 2. But if they can get to Boston, Bruce's hometown, we'll then talk about some matchups. And I think it's going to be, if it's that one, I hope it's that game for fans. It'll be interesting. But get this, UConn needs to worry if you believe in trends. Yeah. We have not had a reigning national champion get past the Sweet 16 since Duke in 2016. Last year, you'll remember, reigning national champ Kansas, a 1 seed, lost to Arkansas second round. Go Pigs. Pig Suey. 2 years ago, reigning national champion Baylor, also a 1 seed, lost to North Carolina in the second round. So,
Yeah.
I'm sure that UConn, Danny Hurley is saying, listen, only thing on our mind is Stetson, and they shouldn't have any chance against UConn. But then you got FAU or Northwestern, both of which have guards that can cause you some problems for sure.
Doug, let me throw this at you. And you pointed out again in your brilliant work, it's a masterpiece. UConn since 1998 has won 5 national championships.
They're good.
Okay. After that, that's 2 more than Duke, 2 more than North Carolina, 3 more than Kansas, and 4 more than Kentucky. And the days of the blue bloods, that's over. Okay. And the problem is the committee picks by looking out of the rearview mirror. And I call them mothballs. I mean, they've been around and they're so decrepit and old and nuts.
Let me interject. What else could the committee have been looking at with Virginia than, we liked them in 2019. They hadn't done crap since 2019. And it was, you can forgive automatic bids, somebody winning a tournament and stealing your bid. But UVA had no resume argument, and you saw it in that game last night, didn't you? UVA took that ball back. It looked like they were the Auburn Tigers playing football in that 3-0 game against Mississippi State. They
3-2.
They airballed a foul shot in the game, and so it makes you really mad. And Rick Pitino said about this so-called use of net rankings. Pitino said that's fraudulent. We've already proven that the committee really doesn't go by net when the push comes to shove.
Let me throw this, Doug, and again, always giving you credit because this is coming from what you wrote. There is a atmosphere out here of canceling people that step up and stand up. I almost said it. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. We need the responsibility of the free press is to hold those in positions of authority, or they think they're in authority, accountable. And if you are canceled by said university and you don't get press credentials because you ask a lot of tough questions, shame on that university. They are a state university in almost every case, state employees, taxpayer funded. I think class action lawsuits ought to start coming from journalists. Okay, because they are not private entities. And hats off to you and every other true grit journalist out there, media people, podcasters, whatever, writers that are asking these tough questions. Because I dare anybody on ESPN up there, the Kool-Aid drinkers, to ask a tough question if they were to get Charles McClellan, the head of this committee, on there, and Greg Byrne and Martin Newton and anybody else on this committee a tough question. You would be shooed away. They'd be kind of like at a tennis match when everybody kind of whistles. Oh, ask the tough questions. And you know what? That's what all journalists need to be trained to do instead of going along with woke groupthink. God love you, Doug. Dean.
Look, it's not lost on me that there's nothing worse than a fan. At the end of the day, I'm more of a fan than an analyst.
Yeah.
I'm a fake analyst and working at it, but that none of us want to hear a fan whose team just got a 4-seed opportunity whining that they didn't get an easier path. Because when we say easier path, out of the minute it leaves your mouth, what you're saying is based on chalk or on paper. It's easy, but we don't know how the first 2 rounds are going to play out. But on paper, again, I'm saying UConn got hosed with the toughest region. All you got to do is look at the average Ken Pom total score of the regions, and it's like in low 20s in the East, where UConn and those powerhouses are, including Iowa State. They can mess shit up on you defensively. Mm-hmm. So ISU should have gotten a 1 seed over North Carolina, arguably. So when those dominoes start falling the committee's got the cover of saying, well, every year somebody's disappointed. But what they should never have happen, they could use artificial intelligence program, for God's sake, and get speed. They could make the tournament performances matter if they would utilize technology and quit and get and depoliticize this thing. I'm sorry, but when you see Kentucky get a 3 seed in a region where they start in Indianapolis, and Kentucky's 23-9, they have a Ken Pom 21st, net score 18th. Just compare that to Auburn, 27-7 record, Ken Pom 4th ranking, net 5th ranking. I would need Sankey, really actually need Alabama AD Greg Byrne and Sanford AD Martin Newton, who's both great guys, honorable men as far as I'm concerned. By the way, Newton is the son of former Alabama basketball coach C.M. Newton, a great one. I mean, a great basketball coach, great man. Yes. But I would need them to explain respectfully what was being considered even before the tournament finished. Because Kentucky, they beat Auburn in Auburn, but all the games matter, and supposedly the analytics matter, and it just doesn't. It seems like they should have at least swapped Alabama to be in the East region with UConn and or Kentucky there, or arguably Kentucky should have been the 4 seed and Auburn the 3 seed. Does it really matter in the long run? I guess not. But if the committee wants to establish trust and faith from fans who pay the bills, then they need to at least have little or no completely mathematically illogical, mystifying results that we seem to see every year.
Well, you watch on ESPN. They have the minders there. I say this every day, but in football, Ohio State has minders on ESPN, CBS, Fox. They've got, just like in China, you go over there for a run in the morning in Beijing or Shanghai or Canton, you're going to be followed every step of the way. And it is wrong. And that's why ESPN is laying people off. They're losing viewers, and they're going to continue to, because you've got to look. Why is Pat McAfee's show doing well? But I read a great article by a great writer, and I can't recall his name, but he said, Pat, how are you going to keep ESPN from destroying you? Because they destroy pretty much everybody they bring on, because they make you just sell out to the big ass paycheck. You know what? Your honor's dearer than your life. You as a committee member, look, you've got to do what is right. I mean, and the committee made biased political decisions. And you're right. If these rankings, which they have this Ken Pomeroy, and they have, bracketology, Joe Lunardi, every basketball game, every hour of every day, they shove them in your face. If they don't mean anything, then make these annoying guys go away. They're like Martha on those Medicare commercials. That old, gosh, just put her in front of a train, Danny DeVito.
When I was working in sports TV, and doing in Denver, I worked for the Altitude Sports and an Entertainment Network, which is Stan Kroenke, right? Which is a la what the Yankees do, and Steinbrenner had the Yes Network. When owners had their own. Decided to own their own media, right? This really changed journalism in sports quite a bit. We talked about this at the Poynter Institute when I was with Dad about ethics, and we're talking about it somehow became okay in sports when we got a story or a reporter got a story about, say, whomever at the Denver Nuggets, and it was something that was probably going to come out or maybe not come out or whatever it may be. But we were told it was like, no big deal to say this, you got to squash this. This story does not come out. We do not release our own story. And I really feel like that, that was 15 years ago. I feel like that was the beginning of the slippery slope in sports. Yes. And that's why we saw the athletes being hired as media people. And not that that's a bad thing, but they were always color, right? They're always analysis. They were not the sideline reporter. I think we're seeing that migration now. And I think, they're always going to side with player. They're always going to side with with the team, most of the time. So it's really difficult to get the truth out anymore.
Yeah.
And I really feel like, sports has been censored a great deal, and it's been going on for quite some time.
It hasn't. Since I've got a great Gator man, Brendan, on as our producer, it needs to be footnoted, guys, that it looks to me like Florida got hosed, downgraded on their seeding because of the known injury of Micah. Meanwhile, Kansas conveniently keeps their mouth shut about an injury of a key player who's not going to be in March Madness, and Kansas is a 4 seed. So, I'm not a fan of those kind of shenanigans by Bill Self, who's had his own issues. So guess what? Karma is a scornful lady, and I was already thinking about it. I'm definitely picking Samford on the shocker over the Kansas Jayhawks this week.
Yeah, and I see Dudley Dawson there with beautiful background of one of the greatest cities in America. I see the arch in the background, St. Louis, Bush. It's just that going up in the arch as a kid. First time I went up in it, I was 9 or 10, and we were up there for a business meeting for a few days. And my dad took my mom and dad. Took my 2 sisters and my mom and me, and I got up in the arch, and that thing shakes. By the way, guys, when the wind is blowing. Dad, being an architect, said, boy, concrete has no natural tensile strength. So you have to use rebar and all that engineering stuff. But what an awesome place. But Doug Dean, you nailed it. We've got to have, and I know you got one more thing to say before we go to Dudley. And I love it when you and Dudley have banter back and forth, because Dudley is, like native of Balch and Newport, Arkansas. But by God, he doesn't traffic in rumors, which I respect a ton. And he also is a journalist. He's not a fan. I love it.
Hey, I got a lot of love for Pig Suey Nation. Got no problem with them. We've had our dust ups with Musselman, but that will happen in competitive play. It needs to be noted, Rob, and I can't help my burnt orange and navy bias creeping in here. But in 108 seasons at Auburn without Bruce Pearl, Auburn had 4 championships, 1 tournament, and 3 regular seasons. That's 108 seasons. Bruce Pearl has won half of Auburn's league titles in only 8% of the program's history. He's got a total of 4 conference championships at Auburn, 2 tournament and 2 regular season. And this year, we got to let it play out. But there are, some parallels with that 2019 team getting hot late. This is a very different team. They've got a much more dominant 4 and 5 man, and you had Dylan Cardwell in there. That's what they're going to try to ride in this tournament. But whereas in 2019, it was all about guard play for the most part with those 3-point shooters. So he's also taken Auburn to its first ever Final Four in 2019. So would you say that's a return on investment in hiring?
If I could get an ROI like that for every client's account, I'd have a lot of happy clients. Dudley, God, what a background. You heard what Doug Dean said. Look, the best guest, it's not even close. You do better in school when you go to class every day and you take notes and you study. You do better as a host of a show like Sidelines, SEC Sidelines Sports Network and SECU, when you bring on the writers, because they think about what they're saying, because they wrote it down first. Here's one of the best. Dudley, go ahead, Doug.
And Dudley, how are things up your way?
Doing good. I got up at 4:30 this morning to continue the decades-long deal of watching the first pitch of the Major League Baseball season. They're making it tougher on me starting in Korea, but wanted to get it done. I've already wrote 2 stories this morning. So,
God,
hey, you know what? I pushed out 4 stories by 7:30 this morning. Okay?
There you go. Well, congratulations. You got me topped.
This is why
make that money.
This is why we have all of y'all on this show.
Neither of you guys would make very good Gen Zs.
No. Hell no.
Looking for their next latte.
No. That's.
Well, I can tell you, I might be up by 7:30 tomorrow, but it'll be PM.
Hey, Dudley, what's going on? Yeah,
Dudley, is Coach Musselman, do you think, going to really have to hit the portal hard with this basketball team?
Yes, he has 7 open spots, to my knowledge. They contacted 14 people, according to our Kevin McPherson, in that first day when the portal was available. So I'm sure that he's going to use it as well as he can again. There's not a ton of great high school players left out there, but I'm sure they're on a few of those. But it's an interesting quandary here. This was not the best year at all. But he's had great success here, similar to what you were reeling off the Bruce Pearl knowledge. It was quite a drought here as far as getting to the Elite Eight, Sweet 16, all of that before Musselman got here after Coach Richardson, was no longer the coach. I'm sure there's going to be some interest. Louisville, maybe some others that will probably reach out to him. A lot of people getting extensions in the SEC. Wouldn't be surprised if Musselman gets one of those, and also wouldn't be surprised if he's coaching somewhere else. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, the thing about basketball, we've talked about it, unlike SEC football teams, you can get competitive in a New York minute in basketball. You just need 3 or 4 serious difference makers if you've got a core of other good experienced players.
Yeah, he's had 4 really good years using that portal. 1 not so good this year. As I've said all along, I thought they had too many Chiefs, not enough Indians. They can prove themselves out. He's got a good crew that he can bring back if they want to come back. Some of them have the COVID year. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, and I'm sure it's all going to happen quickly because you'll maybe get that extension or find another job. I'm sure all these things are going to get handled pretty quickly.
Hey, Rob, can we, before I get out of the way,
Yeah.
Can we talk psychology for a second?
You can't leave until I have a couple of your dark horses, Doug, because I want to know. I got some bracket information here. I need some Doug info.
Listen. You're at your own risk. Are you following my brackets? But I've got. I don't know that you can call a 3 seed a dark horse, but I've got Creighton, who's the only team since I guess after the new year, the only team that's beaten UConn, Creighton. But I've got them, and the Vol fans aren't going to want to hear that. So I'm glad I said this before your next guest comes on, Rob. But and so that means a kiss of death for Creighton. Real bigger dark horses. Hail State. I mean, UNC to me is an slightly undeserving 1 seed. So an 8 seed Mississippi State, they're going to beat Sparty. And if they face, I wouldn't want to play Mississippi State if I were North Carolina. I mean, they gave Auburn all kinds of trouble, and if the referees let them play physical and a little bit ugly like that, that could be a challenge for the big for North Carolina. So I'm not saying State to win it all, but maybe advance pretty far in the Elite Eight, if not farther. And I'm sure Bama fans would not want to hear that forecast either.
Yeah. Well, give us. I like those dark horses. I mean, Mississippi State's big and physical. Yeah, Doug, go over your Final Four, and we'll let you go. I know you got to go.
And listen, my Final Four, it's been a long time. I won it. I run a pool in Birmingham, and it's been 8 years that I've won it. Anybody that says they've got a formula, they figured it out, is lying. Liars. They're just lying. I mean, you throw damn darts. I had one of my buddies used his 6-year-old nephew to make the picks, and I like his chances. Here's my Final Four: Auburn and Arizona, Wisconsin. That one worries me a little. Houston's probably going to rise up. Wisconsin. And how does the committee get a rematch before the Sweet 16 between Houston and Wisconsin? Go figure. But Wisconsin and Creighton, and then I've got Auburn playing Creighton for all the marbles. You don't think I was going to pick somebody not named Auburn after what we've seen at this point, do you, Rob?
No, and that's okay. And
Mark Bradley, there must be an apocalypse near AJC. Mark Bradley, won't admit it, but he's a Georgia guy, which is fine. But he's picking Auburn, in his words, to win the whole shebang, despite the fact that they go to Boston, which will be a home game for UConn, basically.
Yeah.
And you like Bruce my Pearl, Gators. Thanks a lot, Doug.
Well, hey, Bruce Pearl's going to have.
I like Florida to advance, but I think it hurts them that their big is out, and I hope they prove me wrong. I'd love to see Florida come out of that region. It would be charming, and I've got a lot of love for Todd Golden, just like Bruce Pearl does.
Yeah, I do too. And Dudley, talking about this, what's your Final Four if you've picked your brackets? And last night, Virginia, that pathetic effort. They had 14 points at halftime. Went over 10. I mean, that's not D1 basketball. I have seen little kids, elementary school basketball more productive than that on more than one occasion. Virginia had no business being in the tournament. That's the politics.
Church rec ball, Rob.
Yeah. The definitely Indiana State with Cream Jabbar, which is what they nicknamed their center. Would have been much more fun to watch in there. Virginia has certainly a great coach in Tony Bennett. They've had a great lineage, but it just wasn't their year. And that was just, I think that I watched an entire episode of a 2-hour thing and before they scored again, it seemed like. It was just, it went on forever. And I felt sorry for those guys because, you get it there and you want to do your best. But I was sitting there thinking, I'd rather be watching Indiana State right now.
Yeah. And
as far as my Final Four, I'm a Ric Flair guy. To be the man, you got to beat the man. So I'm taking UConn or beat. The other part of my Final Four is Houston and Purdue on one side, UConn and Alabama on the other.
Alabama,
right? Wow. If Auburn was down there where Alabama's at, I would have Auburn there. But with Auburn playing UConn, that's who I've got coming out.
On paper, I don't mean to sound whiny like a typical Auburn guy, but you know how it goes. On paper, Alabama looks to have a manageable path, at least to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at is during the run-up. And obviously they score a lot of points. That'll be interesting for a lot of teams who have not played their style of basketball. How will they handle that? But it's interesting. I've got Grand Canyon beating St. Mary's. That's one of my upsets. Got Alabama playing Grand Canyon. So if you're looking for Grand Canyon and James Madison are two of my teams that I'm picking in one of my brackets.
You heard it here first.
Get to the Elite Eight, just because I know my first one that I picked logically won't do well at all.
Well, my dogs, all dogs we've ever owned in our family, past and present, pick teams for the brackets based on animal nicknames. And if there's not an animal nickname, there's nothing you can do about it. But the Final Four for all dogs in my family, past and present, UConn, of course, the Huskies. North Carolina, the Tar Heels, that's a ram. Texas, Bevo is a Longhorn. Not the best beef, but still an animal. And the Florida Gators. So that's their Final Four, and it has the Huskies playing the Gators. And are you kidding me? I've seen on more than one occasion when somebody's dumb enough to leave a dog on a leash near a slough where gators are, Gators eat the Huskies. Gators are your national champions for all brown dogs, past and present.
And this dog,
my dog
right here, this dog.
Peter on line one.
People eating tasty animals. There we go.
Okay. Hey, Rob, I'm going to give a promise, but I didn't get y'all's take on coaching psychology. I don't think I've ever seen this. I'm sure it's been tried before, but Coach Dye has to be furrowing his brow from up on high. Coach Bryant, the poor mouthing school that all four of us probably cut our teeth on in every sport. Well, I just hope we can keep it close to the end and maybe have a chance.
I hope we can just stay in the game.
If we just trying to lower your opponent's expectations, catch them off guard. Here's what Bruce Pearl does. He tells his team in the opening SEC tournament game, pregame locker room, guys, we're not here to win this game. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And he says, we're here to win 9 games. You hear me? Three down. So far, so good, Robin. What I love about that psychology is very high risk, because if you go out and lay an egg and Yale knocks us off, I'll tip my hat to Yale and say, go Ivy League. But what he's saying, I think what he's doing is he's transmitting serious confidence that we belong. We should get an opportunity to play at the highest level. We're that good now. And what you saw, with the exception of some stretches in the Mississippi State game, give that team credit. Auburn was just steely resolve, and so I'm fascinated to watch if his psychology play here works as you get deeper. If Auburn can get out of Spokane, Washington, and get to Boston, does that work? Do you start to see a moxie from this Auburn team, not in no small part from that psychology? Have you ever seen that particular coaching play?
Yeah, I have certainly a little bit with Coach Richardson when he was here, but it was an us against the world deal. You know, they don't think we can do it all this. I mean, he had those guys worked up. I went and covered practice one day, and he played "Ain't No Stopping Us Now" by the song from back in the day.
Oh, that's
over
Diana Ross.
Diana Ross.
No. It's
the Temptations.
McFadden and Whitehead.
Oh, come on, guys.
And he played it for over 2 hours during the practice. It just kept going on a loop over and over and over. Man, they came off that court. They were ready to play. They weren't ready to listen anymore, McFadden and Whitehead, but they were ready to play. And he was always us against the world, and it worked out for him.
Dudley, I mean, Auburn didn't always have the same artillery Arkansas did under Nolan, but man, I can tell you, I was always scared to play, especially in Bud Walton.
Well, his players were scared of him. I mean, he threatened several times just to straight up whoop them.
Yeah.
Dudley, Doug, unbelievable stuff as always. You don't hold back. We won't hold back ever on this show. Thank you. Unbelievable.
Don't back down, Doug.
Yeah,
be ready. Hey,
your brackets going to be busted by Sunday, so have fun.
Oh, hey, absolutely. Friday morning, Doug, be ready to go, okay?
Gators win it all, Doug, just letting you know.
There you go.
All right. See you, Doug.
Take care. Dudley, speaking of Nolan Richardson, that's a guy that I'd love to talk to because I love people that don't hold back. I got a lot of respect for that. And I remember when he came to Arkansas, I think it was 1985. And our good friends, Ralph and Dixie Carlson over in Lehigh, I grew up knowing them, and that's who I thought of as Razorbacks. And my friend Tommy Christenberry that played up there 78 through 81. That's how I associate my opinion or my feeling or my perception of a school by the fans that I know. You can't get better. Melanie, all the Carlson, they're just solid as a rock.
Yeah, I remember the 1985 press conference when he was hired, and
I do too.
If you look at the photo that they took of him, you can see me over in left,
yes!
manager, and I had hair. It was beautiful flowing hair. Something I haven't had in a long time.
Where's this photo? I got to find a picture.
I'll give it to you.
Get it to us.
Yeah.
Hey,
Dudley.
Speaking of pictures, do you guys know who this is?
Hold on a second. Oh gosh, that is one of them's Nolan Richardson.
No.
McFadden Whitehead.
Yes.
There you go.
Who is that?
McFadden Whitehead. It's who wrote "Ain't No Stopping
Ain't No Mountain
Now."
High Enough.
Yes, that was the song we were just jamming out to. Ain't
No Mountain High Enough that Diana Ross sang.
No, you got the wrong song, dude. We're Ain't No Stopping Us Now.
Oh, okay, got you.
It may not sounded about a different gender, but it was a different gender.
Hey, Dudley, Nolan Richardson's still there in Fayetteville, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, him and his wife. His wife has been ill for quite a long time. He doesn't get out as much as he used to because he's. He stays around her, obviously. Coming to several games. I saw he came to a Fayetteville High game, and Greg Thomas, who used to be a quarterback here at the University of Arkansas, he's written a book, great dude. Brought his team to the tournament here in Fayetteville, and they all got to beat Coach Richardson. You could see it was a big deal for him. I've always said that him and Coach Sutton were, second fathers to me somewhat, because I had come from the farm in Newport/Balch.
Yes.
And thought I was all it when I got up here, and realized that I wasn't, and they kind of molded me into whatever I am today.
What are you now, Dudley? Grandfather.
He's a grandfather. And by the way, how's the grandson doing? Got an update on him?
He's doing great. Patron and I will be going to see him at next weekend, and LSU will come here to play baseball. I'm going to Pennsylvania to see my grandson. That's
what sport is he going to play? Do you think? And
he'll play probably every sport.
Yeah,
I mean, he's already got
what position though?
I've already given him the nickname the A Train, which my son, his dad. I'm not sure how he feels about it, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm the grandpa now. I get to make these decisions.
Oh yeah, you get to rile them all up and leave. It doesn't matter.
That's right. We
sugar. I'm out.
Mallory's got one. Chandler's 15 months over there in Atlanta, and then my daughter Hallie's got a baby, Alexander the Great, coming. I think around April 24th. Hopefully, they're accurate with that time. But that's going to be fun. I mean, Dudley, you're talking, and Brendan, you've grown up with a dad who's a great sports writer and a great man. And, Dudley, one thing that I think is so important is that we have journalists, and I've seen sports writers. I remember just getting to be around. There was a guy named Charles Hollis that used to cover, it was in Birmingham. He covered Auburn. He covered all kind of different schools. And just getting to talk to him, or someone like Philip Marshall or Tony Barnhart or you, I've got so much respect for these writers that are not afraid to ask the tough questions. Does it bother you that we're in a culture where people are fearful and almost cower that, well, if you ask too many tough questions or really probing questions, you're going to be canceled? Because I think that's wrong. In this country, the First Amendment, the right of free speech, and of course, slander and libel, you're protected for that as well. And then now there's something called a SLAPP. Are you familiar with that? Strategic liability. Okay. My attorney told me about that at lunch Friday. That's going to be a big deal going forward. But here's the thing. It's so important that you ask tough questions, but also I can tell you as a TV reporter being asked on, say, a murder case, could you all kind of help us? We've got one more suspect. If y'all go with this story, he's going to know we'll never get him. We'll never solve this case. That happened to me the first 2 weeks as a TV reporter on a double homicide. I'm just saying, you got to know you never can compromise, but also you got to use common sense, don't you?
Yeah, I gave some counsel the other day to a guy who's gone on and made a name for himself, but he was asking a question about one of the most beloved athletes here at the University of Arkansas over the last few years, and that person, notice how I did that instead of he or she, that person has not maybe played up to the level that a lot of people thought they would, but that person is beloved. Well, how do you go about asking the question? Well, you got to ask that question whether that person is beloved or not. That person's not playing up to their level, then you need to figure out, you need to ask the question just like anybody else would. Whether you're in New York, LA, if you're in Fayetteville, you still got to ask the same question, because that's your duty to your customers, to your readers, to people who follow you. I know it's harder when you're young and you're worried about getting into it with coaches and being banned. But if you do that, then you're never going to get to where you want to go, and you'll be out of the industry soon anyway. You can't be a fanboy. You also can't be entirely negative, although that's become the cottage industry among our profession, with some who just go rogue or just go negative just to get the clicks. And as you and I have talked about a lot. Yeah. I want people to read my stuff, but I will never put a headline out there, or I'll never put a story out there just so people will talk about me, because it's not about me, it's about everybody else.
Well, yeah, when the media starts reporting on itself, as my dad always told me, that's when you know the story has gone wrong. When the media starts reporting that so-and-so in the media said this, which we do a lot of now with Twitter and everything, because you don't have a lot of choice, but when the media starts doing that, it means somebody's not doing their journalism. They're not putting the shoe leather on. And because I always ask young reporters, just like my dad always taught me, okay, well, that's great. That's a great source for where the story starts. But who have you called? Who's your next step? Okay, great. I'm glad you found that out on X, Twitter, or whatever it is. Yeah. Did you call them? Did you reach out to them? Did you send them a message? what was your next level? Because, that's where I think a lot of people stop, right? It's like, we've got this and then we're done.
I've had two guys in our profession go at each other on social media one time, and I sent them both just a simple text. It's an acronym. If you know what it means, then you know where I'm coming from. It just said STFU. I didn't do a lot. I thought that would handle it.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to Trip Keeter, my friend Brian, one of my pledge brothers at Auburn, who's from Heber Springs, and Trip Keeter will be at Arkansas this summer or in the fall. And I said, just get on the back wheel of Dudley. When you go ride, you go run.
Baseball the other day, I saw.
You did good. And I said, just learn from him. I said, he's your uncle's age. He's my age. This is a guy who effing gets it. And if he retires before he's 85 or 90, I'm going to be mad at him. I mean, because
that's good.
I'm mad at you. But it's critical because here's what I love about Sidelines. We're building SEC Sidelines Sports Network and SECU. You get people that cover all these different schools, but I get as fired up talking about these other schools as I do my own school. Therefore, I'm harder on my school than I am any other school. I'm sometimes ridiculous, but I love what you just said. You're mentoring and get to work with these young writers. They've got to learn, just being cynical all the time. That doesn't work, but don't be afraid to ask tough questions. And if you do what's right, you're going to earn the respect of others. Speaking of that, who are a couple of writers, 2 or 3 writers that you still look up to or that helped guide you throughout your career? Because you've got a hell of a career going.
Well, I'd say 2 of the biggest were Bob Weisner, who was one of my first bosses at the Hot Springs Sentinel Record.
Yeah.
Got to go down there and learn all about horse racing, which was
right.
Right out of college, but really, got a lot of great guidance from him. And then without a doubt, Clay Henry, son of Uncle Henry, who was my boss for a long time, but has been my friend longer than that. He went about doing everything right. And so I would take a little from the guys locally and also read guys like Bob Ryan, Bernie Miss, the Boston Globe, Bernie Mislack, St. Louis Post-Dispatch, some guys down at the Dallas Morning News, and just kind of, would take things from them and try to incorporate that into my stories without copying them. I don't know if I explain that very well, but take some of their style, some of their journalistic principles, and try to do that. I've never thought of myself as a great writer, but I do think of myself as a great reporter and somebody who puts in the time to do the best they can to be fair. And that's the one thing Tripp and all the other guys need to understand. You don't got to be liked, you don't got to be hated, but you need to be fair.
Yeah,
that's right.
Let me tell you, from I love the Gators, but the fan base is rough. In the sense of the bigger you get, the more natties you bring home, the more hardware you put in that closet, the more, just like Alabama, the more it's like you better, you are in the fishbowl gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And I think that's what Billy Napier's been experiencing a little bit. I think it's really, and I've heard other coaches talk about this, from Florida, it is, it's something you think about before you take the job, because like I don't think Chip Kelly came to Florida because I don't think he wanted to be in that fishbowl. I think he was much more comfortable at a UCLA at the time because he knows he's not going to be scrutinized. Of course, you're going to have your hardcores, but it's like, running these websites and being around, other fan bases, working in other markets. The Florida fan base is extremely critical, and I understand. I mean, it is what it is, but I think I think coaches just are not ready for that. I mean, truly, and I think it hits them right in the eyes. And I think that's a lot of SEC schools in general. I don't think you're ready for all of that comes with it, and especially if you're not an SEC guy. I think that's sort of a special deal, and I think the ones that get it and embrace that culture, embrace the traditions, and then set a couple of their own without changing too much. because that's when you start messing with history in the SEC, people get upset.
Well, yeah, Kalen DeBoer is a guy that's going to be interesting for me to watch. I saw the other day that he got his salary up to $10.5 million before he's already coached his first game there in Alabama. That just adds more pressure to him. And when you follow the man, you want to be that second guy. The expectations on him are going to be tough. And I think he's a very good coach. There's a reason he was hired there. There's a reason he's had great success. But, man, you talk about a fishbowl. You let them lose one of those early games, and they're going to be yelling. Pretty much like Auburn was with Harsin.
Yeah. Well, Harsin had the personality of a prison guard on death row. So
nothing against prison guards on death row, by the way.
And he didn't. Yeah, but he didn't have any personality. He didn't believe in recruiting, and he was just a jerk. I'm glad he's gone. I mean, he was the worst hire. Him and Tony Barbie, the worst.
How do you really feel about
him? I think Alan Green, the athletic director at the time, probably won't get another job as an athletic director for the foreseeable future. He's like a deputy AD at Ole Miss now because he made that hire out of revenge against boosters at Auburn who tried to throw Gus out and put Kevin Steele, the defensive coordinator, in. And all I heard was, well, Kevin Steele, he failed at Baylor in 96 and 97. Baylor football back then was about as bad as the East German economy at the height of the damn Iron Curtain days, okay? It was a terrible, terrible time. Kevin Steele's a great man and a great coach. Let me tell you something, son. My son Wilson, who's in the M&A business and banking and investments, just sent me this. Y'all ready for this? J.P. Morgan creates sports investment banking division. Holy shnikes. What have I been saying? Venture capital, it's coming. Private equity firms are going to come in and start getting involved. Now, got to ask you this. First baby usually arrives late. I'll agree with that. I mean, all three of mine were C-sections, though. No Mr. Potato Heads there. But somebody in Arkansas needs to learn about evaluating football recruits. And Vince Ferrara, car problems, emergency. He's at the mechanic. He said, I'll try to get with y'all as soon as I can. Love the guy. But Dudley, let's talk about this football right now. A few minutes here. What's going on? Spring practice with the Razorbacks. Bobby Petrino, he's been there before. He's been the head man. He's installing his offense. I've been getting some stuff from my friend Chris Saxon about his nephew Patrick Kudus, the offensive line, all that. Sam Pittman's back doing what he loves, and I'd love to hear what you know about it.
Well, football practice is wide open these days. I think after the way the season went last year, they're letting riders just come and stay and watch. The fans are going to, they're on spring break this week.
I have no idea what that's like.
Yeah,
tell us more, Dudley.
Yeah.
Really? You got to see football and they let you come in and actually watch?
Yes.
Tell us
they
more.
They realized full well
my drone.
Coordinate, you need to do everything you can to get the fan base excited. So anybody who wants to come, I'm not saying there's been phenomenal attendance, but the availability is there. They get it that they're in this situation that coordinated and something you raise a lot of money off of. So they're doing everything they can. But as far as just the actual practice, Coach Petrino is fully running the offense. As I mentioned last week, people are open. It's cool.
Yeah.
Receivers running are open. They've got a great group of running backs. The line has 3 new starters.
I guess that makes sense.
Patrick is going to be, sure looks like he's going to be one of those guards. Everything is good to very good right now. As you always know, we'll see them playing against each other is not a good barometer. I learned that very early on when I went out there and said, man, look at them have all that success. And then, they get into the season. Well, but I think there's an excitement among the coaches, there's excitement among the players. We'll see if there's an excitement among the fans, and that will come starting August 31st against UAPB when they have their first game. I'm sure that'll go well for them. And then, as I mentioned, they'll go to Oklahoma State, and we're going to find out a lot about every portion of the football team on that day.
I guess Bobby Petrino wants, he wants some friends in the media, right? He's looking for a couple of, So I would think that, it's funny how you see the newer coaches or some of these other coaches where they'll play nice, and then it's this slower lockdown where you just start to lose a little bit more and a little bit more. And by the way, just so you know, not that you all don't know, but there is, these athletic associations for these football teams, right? The UAAs and all these things that are separate business. And within these things, there is a media team and a media division. And these schools have functioning websites that are powerhouses, right? Yeah. And they levy how much video you can run per, you only, like Florida says, you can only run 3 minutes of this, 2 minutes of that. You can't, there is a whole, every list, every year you get, you kind of clinch a little bit because you get the media direction from the school. And it's like, it just takes a little bit more. And if you were talking about a class action lawsuit, Rob, the class action lawsuit, and I think they've sort of backed off, is the fact that they can run whatever they want as long as they want in its entirety, right? But they come out, and now they've got AI set to regulate us. So it's like they come back out after us, and we don't have a right to make any money and per se, even though we're covering the event or the press conference, or it's our camera, or we're doing the electronic gathering. That's something that's always stuck with me, because it's like, well, I guess you're just going to lock us out of the deal.
Yeah, Arkansas has their Hogs Plus, which is, I think, what you're talking about. The Bo Mattingly and Sawyer Radler, two of the guys that used to be on the radio show, they do a great job with that. But it's a quandary for us, because fans can pay that $9.95 a month, and I do as well, so I can see some behind the scenes stuff, that the university keeps to itself. That's the way of the world now. I can be upset about it. Everybody can be upset about it, but it's wasted oxygen. It is. Like I said, I think that it helps the fans it's a service for the fans, and they get some stuff that we wouldn't get to get anyway. Now, as a reporter, I can get a little stuff. It said that at 30, I'd probably be throwing stuff at people, but at 60, I understand where we're at in the college game right now. And, I can make my feelings known about it, but I'm not going to sit here and just gripe all day.
Right. No, it doesn't make sense.
Well, what I think is going to happen is, with the portal being what it is, they tried to have a deal where the first time you transferred, you're eligible immediately. Then the second time, you got to sit for a year. Now that's been thrown out. The universities are going to learn a lesson, and Arkansas is already doing it. Now, I've been saying this on the show for several years, that you better start doing whatever you can to reconnect with your fans, because you're disengaging them. You're pushing them back. You got to get out of the business of telling them you can't do this, you can't do that. Well, what the hell can we do? Remember the great line when Dean Wormer came in there and was, going to expel the Delta guys, and they're in that meeting, and the stork raised his hand and he said, "What the hell are we supposed to do, you moron?" We got to do something, and they thought the stork had brain damage. Boone, you had a face like a pepperoni pizza when you came here, remember? So, look, I think where we're going to go is these smug, elitist media controllers, these handlers. Their days are numbered. And I'll tell you why. Because with NIL and the portal, and nobody really knows, you got to have the crawl at the bottom of the screen to keep up with who's on your roster. Mm-hmm. Think about a football coach. You finish your rivalry game in late November. A week later, the portal opens. The gates open, and the horses are running wild. So you got to be re-recruiting your own team, recruiting people in the portal. You got to deal with guys wanting to renew their contracts, because that's where we are in college athletics. They're contract players, contract bridge players, although they're not all smoking. But then you've got to deal with, December early signing date. And by the way, get your team ready for a bowl. And in Hugh Freeze's defense, and I'm very critical of him because of him whining about Auburn having to play at Cal last year, don't complain. Embrace the opportunities. But when he said after they got drilled by Maryland in the Music City Bowl, I didn't have him prepared. How much time did he really have to coach? I mean, we've got to use sense. And I'm going to tell you something. You know, never's a long time. Don't ever think things aren't happening. But we need to get back to the sports information directors. Was it Rick Schaefer at Arkansas, who was so good? You would hear him, just the guy just, I'm sorry, I don't know him, but he exudes class, confidence, and charisma. You just think about that.
I've been very fortunate during my almost 40 years on the beat here to have some great SIDs. They have some really good, great ones right now. They all do a great job, but they're limited in what they can do.
Well, that's what it is, Dudley. It's not that they're not good people. It doesn't come from them. You know, Florida's got some great people too that do a great job. They're just doing their job. They're the ones that have to do the hard job and deal with us. Look, media is not easy to deal with either. I mean, it's not like
correct.
We're like, we're looking to, half of us looking to burn you down for something that you might have done. So, everyone's looking for a headline. So I get it. I mean, it's not that I don't understand the perspective. Because there's a happy medium. It's just never going to change. And I think like what Dudley said, I'm 50 years old now. I was fired up, 20 years ago about it, but now it's like, it's no longer a pattern. Like this has been happening a long time. And so this is our now. Right. And we're just going to have to do a better. That's why I tell interns, you just got to do a better job as an intern for a school that works for, let's say, an organization like hogville.net or gatorbaitmedia.com. It is a wonderful opportunity to be the only person that actually has serious insider information as a student. You have the ability, especially, to at least keep your ear to the ground, to at least follow certain things. And I know it's against policy for you to talk to these people. And we've had that issue where one of our interns is friends with the player, but then he reports on, the conversation. So it's like,
can't do it.
Can't do it. Right.
Cannot do that.
So, but at least you have sort of a guidepost, just some breadcrumbs to at least go and say, well, maybe I can go here, or maybe I can go there, or what's the feeling on campus? Because you're closer than anybody at all. So to young people out there that want to do this, what a great time for you to get in and make a name for yourself. Because if you're not producing your own content on your own website, on your own channel, on your own YouTube thing, you're not working hard enough, because all of this stuff is free sitting out there for you. Make your own report, make your own video, make your own deal. And you'll be surprised how much more than the people on Twitter who are just reporting on each other.
Yeah. Dudley, along the line of what Brendan just said, there are some really good, they call them media relations directors. I use the term sports information directors. That should not be a dated term, but they were, we all talk about athletics or the front porch of your university. The SID, are you kidding me? Rick Schaefer, Bob Hartley, who was at Mississippi State. Brendan's dad, Buddy, talks about, hell, we'd be flying up there to watch Florida play Mississippi State. He'd pick us up at the airport. The other schools, SID. I mean, I think about Buddy Davidson and David Housel at Auburn. Jim Lampley, I remember talking to Jim Lampley one time. Remember him, ABC and HBO?
Oh, yeah.
Jim was so cool. And I was talking to him one time at the Iron Bowl up in the press box, in Auburn, Alabama game, just about, he said, we would always put the menu up. They say on the menu today in the press box at Jordan-Hare Stadium is fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, turnip greens, black-eyed peas, cornbread, and banana pudding. And so that right there, you had the media. Now we're talking. And now we're talking Vince Ferrara, the sports animal in Knoxville. Mama Ferrara's proud native son of Tampa, worked in Tuscaloosa, now up in Knoxville. And Vince, we're talking.
Vince, I heard you having car trouble. We had some here last week, and I took it in to get it taken care of, and they called me back with an estimate, and I just said no. Yeah, the wife's going to get a different one. No,
no,
we're not going there.
No, I don't want that.
Yeah. I'm planning on getting a new one. That's why, I haven't gotten other things they've recommended, and now this is popping up. But so yeah, we'll see. I don't know the cost just yet, but you guys brought me in just in time to talk about food. What a surprise!
No, but I was just Mama Ferraras. I just can't get it out of my head. A friend of mine was on campus at Florida yesterday with his son. Then they went over to Tampa to see USF. $300 million addition on the stadium down there. Let's talk. We got about 11 minutes. I know you got to get going, but let's talk about Tennessee at this time of the year. March Madness. I love it. I've got my brackets filled out. I know Dudley has. I know you have. But let's talk about where Tennessee is going, where you think they're going to go in March and April.
Yeah, that's right. If it's April, it's a really good thing for this team and this fan base. Honestly, there's not a ton of confidence, I don't think, for some Vols fans because of the way things went down in Nashville. And I know you can say, well, everybody loses in the conference tournaments. You can always have a great run after losing the conference tournament. It's not just that. It's that Tennessee lost its first game in the tournament and failed to reach the conference semifinals. The SEC Network had a terrific stat. Since 1985, no team that has failed to reach the semifinals of its conference tournament has won the national championship. So they didn't reach year?
Since when?
Since I think 85.
Wow.
Yeah. So that takes the national championship, almost off the table for Tennessee. And maybe you could say, well, they weren't going to win it anyway. But the whole point of this is to be in the conversation and have a chance for it and have that dream still alive. And so they didn't even reach that, much less getting blown out in their first game, which that's another thing. You don't see teams just get absolutely demolished and then go on to tournament success. And then the other thing was just how they played in a lot of ways, like they have not in a game this year. That was alarming. And then it also resurfaced the doubts about Rick Barnes and the NCAA tournament. Now, here's where it's unfair. People are taking what happened in Nashville in the SEC tournament as, see, this is postseason Barnes. They're going to do it again and choke in the NCAA tournament. Plenty of people feel that way. But that's not accurate. It's the NCAA tournament that they've had some underachievements, not the conference tournaments. You're talking about Mama Ferrara? I was there in Tampa a couple of years ago when they won the SEC tournament. So that doesn't apply to them. But because of that history, this is sort of a, see, I told you so. This is the way it's going to be again. So there is definitely that angst. Yeah, absolutely. So now they also, different than a lot of those past teams, is they're healthy. In their top 8 in the rotation, they've had one game missed. One. And that was their reserve center until Beawaka missed a North Carolina game. Everybody else has been available to play for this team. Past Rick Barnes team, Ziegler last year, John Fulkerson, Kyle Alexander on the Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield teams. He was a long, mobile big that was playing his best basketball. They would have had him probably. You could say they could have had a much deeper run. So this team is healthy, so those are out of the equation. They have a difference maker in Dalton Connect. The thing is, and Seth Davis said it on CBS, that Tennessee is a little bit of fool's gold. He said a couple of SEC coaches told him that because they are so reliant on Dalton Connect. And just talking to people in Nashville, talking to coaches, their game plan is to double and make it double connect, get the ball out of his hands. And if you don't, change the looks on him and make him defend and then take your chances with everybody else. And Tennessee now has 4 straight games where their field goal percentage is 38% or less. You have to go back to the Auburn game where they shot over 50% since they've been good from the field. Now, the defense carried them through Alabama and South Carolina. That was not the case against Mississippi State. You had an opportunity for revenge, and you got discouraged when you got punched in the mouth early. So that was not a great sign for a veteran team either. Now, it can be completely different. It's basketball. But that's why this team, there's some question marks about it because of all those things that really surfaced even more in Nashville.
Yeah, I think that field goal shooting, you could try to say it's an outlier, but if it's 4 straight games, you're right in that that's been worrying. The top 3 teams, it was just shocking at the SEC tournament. I mean, we see a lot of upsets in the postseason or at the conference tournaments. That happens all over the place, but for all 3 to just show up and not really take the punch, I think is a good analogy. Like you're saying that.
Yeah, and Dudley, that's why Tennessee is different, because Alabama won the conference tournament last year. So you can't get on them. Tennessee carries its history in the NCAA tournament, that burden with them in terms of expectations. So that's why it's a little bit different than them and Kentucky. Kentucky always has tournament success. So it was even like a Houston, they got blown out too, but Kelvin Sampson's had great NCAA tournament success. It's different for Tennessee. And even Andrea Carter was asked which of those 3 in the SEC tournament was most alarming. And she said by far Tennessee, because their offense has gotten a more stagnant, a little bit more standing around and watching connect, and then the defense. And when you're giving up straight line drives to the basket and they don't stay to their script and their game plan, that makes it a little bit more alarming. Real quick on the matchup, kind of to back up to your original question real quick. St. Peter's is a team, as we all know, made that run to the Elite Eight a couple of years ago. I was actually there and witnessed it firsthand when they beat Kentucky, because they were playing in Indianapolis where Tennessee was as well. They're a different team than they were a couple of years ago. They don't have as many explosive shooters. And the most interesting part about it is Zakai Ziegler's younger brother is a point guard at St. Peter's. So you're going to see those 2 go head-to-head in that game. And then potentially, obviously, people are talking about Rick Barnes playing his former school in Texas. They have to get by Colorado State to do that for a potential fun Saturday meeting. And then, you got the rest of the Midwest bracket with Creighton as the 3 and it's obviously Purdue as the 1, but they're a ways away from that. Tennessee's got to get to, I think, at least the Elite Eight for fans to not feel like this is another disappointment in the tournament. And of course, that will not be easy to do.
Yeah, and Tennessee will be cutting through. Well, they will probably fly to Charlotte, but I just did it a few weeks ago, man. You go from Knoxville to Charlotte. After you stop at that Buc-ee's in Sevierville, which is 74,000 square feet. Then Texas, immediately, they built another one at 75,000 square feet. God forbid someone outside of the Lone Star State has the biggest Buc-ee's. But when you go through those mountains and you go into North Carolina on I-40 and you get to Hickory, where Rick Barnes is from, 40 miles south, you cross the big lake and you go into Charlotte, there will be a ton of Tennessee fans there. But what's funny about these times of year, St. Peter's has a different coach, but you can't let this stuff get in your head. And that's the part about it but I think if you have a team that thinks it's okay to go take a dump in a conference tournament, you've got problems. You should not allow that to happen. And if you think as a coach, it's no big deal, it's a big deal. It always is. And I want Tennessee to do well. I live with a Vol. She goes, "You're not picking against Tennessee." I said, "No, I'm not. I'm just pointing out." But them like Dudley knows Arkansas, but y'all know all these programs. So keep rolling. This is great stuff.
Well, and Tennessee. Go ahead, Dudley. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, they call it survive and advance for a reason. Yeah. You have to play with a sense of urgency in every game. I know you can't do that in every regular season game. You're going to have some losses, but it was shocking for those 3 teams to show up and just not, at least put a foot forward. Not maybe your best foot forward, but a foot forward. And now it is absolutely with the sense of urgency. Anybody in this field, as we've seen last year when Purdue got knocked out very early by a 16, you got to show up. You got to be ready to play. And there are a lot of teams. The parity, we keep saying it, the parity is right all over the place. These James Madison, they went 31-3. So there's so many other teams in there that have great records. And the reason they have great records is not necessarily because of the talent they've played against. It's because of how well they've played together, and that's going to be a big key for all these teams.
Yeah, yeah.
I think you're going to see chaos. I saw a stat this morning that the last 6 national champions have failed to reach the Sweet 16 the following year in the tournament. And everybody's got UConn going back to back, right? I mean, they look like the most complete team that you rely on, that you can trust the most, but typically doesn't happen. You have to go back to Florida's back-to-back years the last time you had repeat champions.
Yeah, it really is. And I think, one thing we know, Fairleigh Dickinson last year, a 16 beat Purdue, as Franz Beard calls them, Purdue. Fairleigh Dickinson. Isn't that where Fawn Leibowitz was killed in a kiln explosion in Emily Dickinson College? But anyway, I just think about that.
Hey, what happens? 3 national anthem references now?
Yes. What's the over and under 5? But both of y'all are right. And as you get to the build-up, we got a few minutes left. As you get closer to these games, Vince, the 6 inches between your ears, Barnes can't shut out social media. What does Rick Barnes need to do to make this work? Because he's got a hell of a team, and they've got some big guys who need to play better together.
Yeah, shut out social media. I don't know that he started social media, to be honest with you. But it's his players and the staff. I mean, they are well aware of it. He knows what the reputation and the history is. And, so we'll see if he changes, he evolves with this year's team, or if he just has ultimate trust that it's, they have a great system and they'll coach him up and their routine works and it's proven in his mind. And if they do the same thing and the players don't elevate their game or play with a chip on their shoulder, which they say they have, then the results are probably going to be the same. So we'll see. But I think obviously their bigs need to defend the post better. Jonas Adu is getting pushed around, and Toby Awaka didn't play well at all. Their best minutes came from their third team big, and so they can't give up the straight line drives. They're outscored like 40-14 in the paint. I mean, you're not going to beat anybody doing that. So they just have to. It's got to be will. It's got to be mindset. It's got to be toughness, physicality. We'll see. And they have to get off to a great start to this playing from behind stuff that they've gotten a little too comfortable with. It's not going to work, because guess what? Then not only you're giving the opponent juice, and they're gaining confidence, and it continues to bubble to the surface. Guess what? The arena is going to go for the underdog. So then suddenly they're going to have home court, in addition to the team having ultra amount of confidence. So fast start, it's critical in these games as a favorite.
Yeah. Dudley, great take from Vince. We got a couple of minutes left. And let me just say, Vince Ferrara, catch him, the sports animal in Knoxville. Dudley Dawson, hogville.net. Doug Dean on in the first segment down in Birmingham. Great show. I'm learning. I'm taking notes in my head. Closing comments, Dudley, on what he just said, because Tennessee's going to try to pack the arena in Charlotte, and their fans travel like Grateful Dead followers. They're deadheads, Vol heads. There ain't nothing like them. There are very few schools like that.
He's absolutely right in that the higher ranked team, may start out with the favor of having their fans, but you let a 16th seed or an underdog get rolling in the entire arena that is not the other 3 teams or however many is there these days, their fans will immediately become a force. So you have to have a great start. You can't fall down 16-2 or whatever it was the other day, or you're going to be fighting uphill because you're going to be pressing, and the arena is going to be against you.
Yeah. Last thing, I gotta bounce, but real quick, don't forget North Carolina's playing in Charlotte too. So tickets aren't just readily available when North Carolina's coming to town.
Woo! When I was there back in February, and my son Wilson, I'm sure he will sneak over there to some of those games, and he's an Auburn grad, but he'll be pulling for Tennessee, the SEC. That's what we do. That's crazy, but we do it. But look, love this stuff. Hey, we're going to do it again tomorrow. Folks, we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Find excuses to win. Go out and help other people. Vince, good luck on the car issues. Dudley, God bless you and your grandson. And I appreciate y'all also taking time to come on this show. It means the world to us. We're a team. We got one mission. We are here to serve our viewers and listeners. If you have trouble getting it on the SEC Sidelines Sports Network or SECU, let us know. It is so easy. My 95-year-old dad is watching the show right now. And by the way, Dad, it is Wednesday, March 20th, the first day of the spring equinox or whatever they call it. But we'll be back tomorrow. Get your brackets filled out. Awesome stuff. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, everybody.
See you guys.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought-after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Sidelines